All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're figuring out how to build a rock-solid emergency fund in just 60 days. And look, we are tackling this even if you're feeling completely broke right now, and even if you are absolutely terrified of opening your banking app to check a balance hovering around $1,742. We've all been there, right? Staring at that screen like it's a horror movie we've already seen. Well, today, we're changing the script.
So, the most crucial thing we need to address is that stomach-dropping feeling that just sneaks up on you out of nowhere. You know the one. It's a random Tuesday and your car suddenly makes a weird, new clanking noise. Or a surprise school fee pops into your inbox. Or even worse, your boss sends that dreaded, "Hey, can we talk?" message. You're sitting there, heart racing, praying nothing else breaks because you know there is absolutely no buffer left. It literally feels like you're balancing on a tightrope without a net.
And listen, if you feel this way, you are absolutely not alone in that anxiety. Bankrate data shows that about 1 in 4 Americans, that's a full 24%, have zero emergency savings. Zero. Add to that, the American Psychological Association cites money as a top stressor for 64% of adults. So if you feel panicked about money, congratulations, you are extremely normal. But just because it's normal, it doesn't mean we have to accept it. Now, here's where it gets super interesting. There's actually a biological reason your brain actively fights against traditional financial advice. When some expert tells you to just save 20%, it's kind of like telling someone who is drowning to just try swimming better. It doesn't work. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, your brain enters a psychological state called scarcity mode. You aren't being irresponsible, you aren't lazy, your brain is literally wired in this mode for survival today, not stability later. It hyper-focuses on immediate problems, totally ignores future risks, and grabs little comfort purchases just to manage the daily stress. So how do we actually outsmart scarcity mode? Well, here's our roadmap for this 60-day sprint. We're going to cover the financial domino effect, the $600 shock absorber, how to separate and stabilize, squeeze and supplement, and finally becoming totally unpanickable. Let's kick things off with part 1, the financial domino effect. Let's look at how one tiny, unexpected event can completely wreck your finances if you aren't prepared. We desperately need a buffer here to stop this vicious cycle. It almost always starts with just one surprise bill. But because there's no cash to cover it, it knocks over the next domino, which is overdraft and late fees. That inevitably leads to borrowing money or paying insane interest on credit cards, which finally results in a massive stress spiral and total panic decisions. An emergency fund simply stops that very first domino from ever knocking the others down. Moving right along to part 2, the $600 shock absorber. Let's talk about our ultimate goal for this 60-day sprint. We are going to build a $600 shock absorber. That specific amount is big enough to handle a blown tire or a surprise utility bill. And to get there in 60 days, we only need to find $10 a day. That is the math, just $10. This is exactly why we're focusing on $600 instead of typical financial advice. You do not need some massive, intimidating $10,000 fund to get massive mental relief. A perfect $10,000 fund feels overwhelming and completely impossible right now. But a $600 buffer, that is entirely achievable. It acts as the perfect shock absorber for most random Tuesday problems, and honestly, it's the exact stepping stone you need to finally break out of scarcity mode.
Now, to actually find that $10 a day without making yourself completely miserable, we're going to use this 4-part behavior machine framework. We will separate, stabilize, squeeze, and supplement.
Which brings us to part 3, separate and stabilize. And surprisingly, day 1 isn't actually about saving money yet, but rather changing exactly where you put it.
Here is your exact day 1 game plan. The sources highlight this fascinating psychological trick. If your emergency fund is sitting right there in your everyday checking account, your brain just sees it as a snack fund. Because environment always beats willpower, the move here is to separate the funds. Open a brand new savings account, literally rename it Do Not Touch Emergency Fund, and if you can, hide it from your main banking screen. Then, automate your transfers, even if it's literally just $5 a day or $25 a week, right after payday, so the habit runs entirely in the background without you having to lift a finger. Once that environment is set up, we need momentum. To give your brain proof that you're actually doing this, in week 1, hunt down your first $100. Go for these fast wins. Scour your bank statement to cancel just one forgotten subscription. Then, institute a strict 48-hour pause on all non-essential purchases to break the impulse loop. Because impulse, not your morning coffee, is the real enemy here. Finally, sell one item collecting dust this weekend. Old headphones, a keyboard, those shoes you never wear. We are building an emergency fund, guys, not your ego. Go hit that cash.
Okay, part 4.
Squeeze and supplement. Let's see how this momentum carries into week 2, shifting from those fast wins to optimizing what we already have.
This is where we patch up those small, emotionally justified leaks in your budget. The reality is, most people don't have a massive income problem. They have a leak problem. If you audit your spending into musts like rent and mess like impulse buys, the math is honestly shocking. Redirecting your mess spending, like a combined $51 a week on random takeout, convenience stores, and online purchases, can single-handedly generate over $400 in just 8 weeks.
Groceries are a huge part of those leaks, mostly because food decisions happen when we're completely exhausted. To stop getting wrecked by tired food decisions in weeks 3 and 4, pick 6 predictable, cheap staple meals. We're talking rice and eggs or oats and peanut butter, and just put them on repeat. This drastically reduces decision fatigue, but crucially, you absolutely must allow yourself exactly one planned treat per week. Psychology 101 tells us that total restriction breeds rebellion. If you remove all the joy, you're going to snap and spend way more later.
Now, squeezing your budget and cutting back can only go so far, right? So the next step is to supplement your income temporarily. And we're not talking about starting some massive business empire here. It's about quick, realistic moves. Ask for just 4 extra hours a week at work if you can. Or commit to one weekend money mission, like freelance driving, cleaning, or helping a friend move to grab a quick $150. And finally, call your internet or phone provider and negotiate a bill. Lowering a bill by $20 a month keeps paying you back long after these 60 days are over. Finally, part 5, becoming unpanickable. Let's look at the actual rules that keep this fund alive well after the 60 days are up.
See, the hardest part isn't actually saving the cash. It's not spending it the second your emotions spike. The most critical takeaway here is clearly defining a true emergency. It threatens your basic survival, period. It's your health, your housing, your transportation to earn income, or your basic utilities. An emergency is absolutely not a random sale, a weekend vacation, boredom, or just a really bad day at work. And the golden rule, if you do use the fund for a true emergency, you have to follow the replace first rule to replenish it immediately before spending on literally anything else.
To really see this in action, look at the story of Maya, who used this exact simple framework. She separated her accounts, automated a tiny transfer, and sold a few things around the house. By day 30, she had saved $320. When a surprise car repair hit, the old Maya would have swiped a 24% interest credit card and been miserable for the next 6 months. The new Maya, she paid in cash. As she said, it wasn't the $320, it was knowing I could handle life. She finally stopped living in fear.
Your emergency fund is not a luxury. It is basic protection. It's literally just like a seatbelt. You don't wait until you're in a crash to put it on, right? So set up your automated transfer today and go get your very first fast win. Because 60 days from now, another random Tuesday is going to happen. The only question is, will it be a total disaster or just a minor inconvenience? The choice is entirely yours.